I think historically, Americans struggle to see the connection, the direct connection between how our environment affects our daily lives.
Climate change is affecting the globe, and we are doing very little to stop it, which will eventually create big consequences.
The glaciers on Greenland would melt entirely. That would result in an ocean rise of about 25 feet. I don't think we're ready for that.
Some of those consequences are starting to show on a smaller scale, but are growing.
Here in the United States, depending on the area in our country, we see either droughts or we see flooding. Those are the two extremes we see. In addition, we also see challenges with natural disasters, increasing number and increasing strength.
Climate change is changing our weather patterns, which are affecting our crop growth and affects our livestock.
Summers seem to be awful hot, which is affecting the crop growth for hay and production of hay.
In the winter, it's getting so cold for the animals with little to no hay that it's creating problems.
The animals are having to eat more, and they're not gaining weight, they're just maintaining their body heat to get through the winter.
The farming industry is based a lot of the weather to decide the production of crops.
If it's really dry, you don't get a very good crop production. If it's wet, sometimes you can't get crops in the ground or off the fields in time.
There are a lot of factors contributing to climate change, but one of the main factors is all around us.
The emissions of greenhouse gas into our atmosphere.
Probably the two big ones. One is the amount of CO2 emissions, and the other is the amount of methane.
The United States, China, and India are the biggest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions.
I think it's quite clear that the increase in the greenhouse gases is essentially anthropogenic, human produced. To deny that means you're denying facts.
Although we are doing very little to try and stop climate change, there are still things we can do to help.
I pay a little bit more for my electricity, but then it comes from solar and wind.
This results in clean electricity that doesn't put carbon into the atmosphere.
Countries like China are blowing the United States out of the water in their use of renewable energy and their movements toward renewable energy.
The single most effective thing you can do is your diet. In that sense, cutting down your meat consumption, especially beef.
There has been a lot of change in the last few years, but some people choose to believe that climate change isn't happening, but the weather patterns are changing just in the last 10 years.
You know, the coldness and the hotness of is there. I think it's got a mild effect on what's going on with our climate.
Climate change is real, and we need to start doing something before we dig ourselves a hole too deep to get out of.
I'm more concerned about what will happen to people 100 years from now.
Those 100 years will come faster than people realize, and we need to do something now before it's too late.
Really, all of the developed countries in the world need to take a stand on climate change and on climate justice.
We only have one world at the end of the day, and we can't trade our home for anything, and that change starts with us. This has been Buikema with Beyond the Rock, signing off.